So, how much of season 14 have either of you played? A lot? Little?
I played a little bit. I think it's fun. It's always the same cycle. Like when Riot changes the items, you there is this very small period where nobody optimizes the items,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very fun because you're just trying things, trying champions, trying combinations, and everybody feels like, oh, the game is new. And then after a month or two, which is right, we're starting this second phase that's very bad. People have figured out what's optimized, and so the game only revolves around these few broken champs that abuse these broken items. And for a whole year, it's just gonna be Riot like sequentially nerfing the item that's at the top of the food chain. So right now it's Storm Surge. When Storm Surge is gonna be nerfed, it's gonna be another item, and all the champions that abuse it are gonna be like top prio. So I really like the beginning of season 14, but no, we are like the only moment the game is gonna be fun again for me is probably gonna be in a year and a half or 2 years when the game is gonna be finally balanced again. Because no, it's just gonna be a hunt of what is the most stupid combination that Riot hasn't thought about when they made the items. That's how I feel about it.
um, do you like the item changes, or do you miss the old items?
I mean, I feel like nobody. I don't know. Did you guys miss it? I feel like
I
nobody
do.
liked the mythic item. I think it was Dog. I think it was actually Dog. I didn't like it at all. The mythic item where you. I didn't understand the paradigm, right? The idea in which we're gonna offer you more options by narrowing your options. Like that made no sense to me when they announced, oh, we're gonna have mythic items that's gonna open up itemization, and then you click on the items like, no, you can't buy this one, and you're like, how come this opens my options? So I'm very happy it's gone. I think it was one of the worst systems that Riot ever implemented in terms of itemization.
Mm. I liked
Yeah,
it.
I did.
Oh, here you go
Or
ahead,
go ahead,
Doug.
Dougie. No,
I
you
was,
got it. You got
I
it.
was gonna say I liked for bot lane. I thought it was the most useful, just because um, some of them really patched out the weaknesses of bot lane. Like support, I don't know, buying the mythics was kind of useless, but you could normally you didn't buy expensive items on support anyway. You just built whatever was best, and they were always cheap, and they always had like some gimmick, like extra movement speed or extra CDR. So the fact that everyone had to wait for mythics and that was their strong point, and you were just running around with a bunch of cheap items that kind of stacked well was nice. And then eight for 80 carries, um, they just I feel like they helped patch some of the weaknesses for the role, or made them
I
feel
feel
better.
like on the topic of ADCs, I think that's a very good point. I think that for the longest time, pretty much the whole history of League of Legends, marksman itemization has been a kind of a problem for Riot Games because you have the IE, right? That kind of was the item that ADC had to go through, like at least we say 80 or 85% of the ADCs, and they had a very hard time because it has to be a very expensive item. And you've seen that throughout the year they've tried to adjust it. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was 710 or something. They tried to make it like double the crit chances. Like they had experiments with the IE because that's kind of the unholy item that everybody needs to have. And I think that the mythic update has had this perk of offering really good items that ADC could pick that were useful. Gale Force, I think the Kraken were really good items. I mean, Kraken stayed. And the third one, the Shield Bow, I wasn't a fan of because it's more designed for like bruisers, and it actually got picked more by bruisers and it got nerfed to the ground. But I think that at least it gave Riot some space to in a sandbox to tune items in a way that you don't build IE first. And if you look at the game post Mythic right now, I think that the building path for ADCs for marksmen is much more diverse than what it used to be like 5 or 6 years ago, which was build your IE and then think about what's going on after. No, you can be, oh, I think I'm gonna go unhit and I'm going to just get Ginzu, or I think I need lifesteal, or I'm gonna go Essence River, or and what's the other item that does the damage on your skills depending on your crit chance? Navari. Navari is one of the best items they've released, I think, in the recent years as well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I miss some of the mythic items themselves, like Gale Force. I don't miss the fact that you could only build like one of them. I like having item variety, I think it helps encourage some creativity, and I felt like that was like kind of a crutch for some like lazy. I mean, it was like easier for them to balance, right? If you pigeonholed people into certain item builds, it was easier to balance theoretically, but I feel like it wasn't as fun as like sort of like Zaboutine was saying, like the beginning of the season, there's like always Wild West builds going on.
Yeah.
And I think there's even more Wild West when you aren't pigeonholed into buying certain items or not. So now I can see, Vayne with IE and Triforce, or I can see Lucian with Kraken uh and Navori. I think it's good to have that item variety, but I'm glad they did away with the mythic system on its own. Period.
For sure, overall, I think it's better, but bot lane, it just, it's always been such a mess to balance in general. And I think Mythics just made it a little easier for bot lane. Definitely for everybody else, it was grief. So, um,
Yeah. I don't know how I felt about the mythic passives either. Like I can
I
understand
was
why they existed, but they were weird.
yeah, I didn't. I mean, the problem. I think one of the worst part of League of Legends is the passives. This is something that I've been very vocal about on my streams and all my medias. Is it is very complex for users. I'm not speaking about the 0.05% of people that actually have a very good grasp on the game. Like challenger players are not the people I'm speaking about in this phrase, but nobody can understand the fact that there is 6 or 7 layers of passives that get into the computation of the damage you do, right? Because you have your runes, then you have your base stats, then you have your items, then you have the special procs of your items. Then with mythic items, you had the stats of your mythic items that combine with your legendary item that adds more stats. And then it just gets very, very weird eventually because computing how strong you are felt like and feels still like to this day a chore. And I've been a strong advocate on less passives, more actives, more outplay, more freedom to execute something. So I'm a big I love the Gale Force. I think it was a great item. I like when you press a button and it does something. And I absolutely hate hidden stats that have been like scattered around your build and your passives and your runes because this gives it's very deceiving for players. Like, oh, why did I do as much damage? Oh, because you had coup de grace and you didn't have this or that. This I feel like is just misleading new players and creates this barrier of entry for newcomers. And I think that's why among the most popular online games, League has the probably one of the lowest retention because it is so hard to understand what's going on with your items and how much damage you do and how much your opponent is doing. And I think that Riot should head towards a simplification of that.
Yeah, you actually said two things that I want to like comment on, Zab. The first one is like the rune system or like the hidden passives on items. Hard agree. I think it would be way better if like I understand like why Riot has the rune system, which is, to give players variance in how you play a character, but I do wish that that information was public or a way to show opponents like what it is or to maybe even just outright do away with it. I think you're right, that would help simplify a lot of things. I also missed all the old active items that they used to have. Like remember when Hydra used to be an active item or Blade of the Ruin King?
Hydra is back at being you have the auto attack reset on the Hydra on this 2024, like the
Oh,
Titanic
really?
Hydra.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Oh,
have it. That's why Xinjiao is very strong again, is because you can double
auto
hit.
reset. Okay.
Yeah, you can auto reset. Yeah,
I actually didn't know Titanic Hydra had the auto reset. That's
yeah,
interesting.
that's
Huh.
great. That's very exciting. I mean, even the Prowler Crow. I mean, it was a stupid item, but I like the idea that we are trying to go with more skill expression for players and less just bunch of stats. And I think
Trifecta.
that a lot, yeah. And there's a lot of design of League of Legends that stems from MMORPGs from 10 years ago or 15 years ago that were like, kind of the core of online gameplay. And when people designed League in 2007, 2008, right? Because the beta was 2009, I think they were really inspiring themselves from like WoW Arena. But the difference with WoW Arena or all these MMOs is you only play a character and it's like, on, on your fingertips, you can tell, oh, my character has like 16 haste and 12 defense and I've choose that much mana because you play your character like 1,000 hours before going into PvP. You've built your items, you've looted your stuff, you've upgraded it the way you want, and so you know perfectly what your character can and can't do. But in a MOBA, having all these layers of items and passives just makes a huge barrier on like becoming an expert of what you're doing. And this is why you see like such a discrepancy in expertise on and skill on players. It's just because there is so many things you need to learn about your own character and how it interacts with items to be able to express yourself as a player.
It's not uncommon for professional teams to have like a dedicated person who comes up with builds, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, usually you have your data analyst. I mean, everybody has a say on it. Yeah, I can take a gold 3 player, put it in a pro team, and he will have IDs. And among these IDs, some are gonna be good and bad. But you have people that like do math and try to find some hidden optimals for items and champions. But I feel like it is so bad. We should never have that.
Yeah, no, for sure. What about the map changes? That was something that I think people were waiting for quite a while, and I personally I feel like it's good, but they kind of messed up the delivery when it came to access to neutral objectives, which is something that I thought the map changes should have been centered around, was making sure that everyone had equal access. Um, but instead, it looks like they went for just making the void grubs kind of balance out the disparity between the two sides.
Mm. Blackheart, do you want to start?
Huh?
Yeah, I can
I'm gonna
start.
say good things. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
good things. So you can start.
Yeah, I will say so I like the map changes. Except as a bot lane player, bot definitely feels like the gank lane. And if you do not play a mobile ADC, that can be a little rough sometimes. But I like the changes. Maybe this doesn't count as a map change, but like a neutral change for Baron. Baron actually feels like a bit of a threat now. I see a lot more throws at Baron Pit than I have in the past like 2 or 3 seasons, and I think that's healthy for the game. It gives comeback potential or rewards a team for knowing when to go to Baron and when to drop it and when to turn to fight or what have you. But I kind of know your disappointment with the Dougie, which is the lack of equal, quote unquote, equal access to objectives. And I think you're kind of right that each map seems to have a different ease of access to either Dragon or Baron. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of an even spread, but otherwise, overall, pretty good. I would say the changes overall were good, not bad.
I think these changes are the best changes in League of Legends that happen in the last 7 or 8 years straight. Like I don't think I've seen a better change from Riot, and I'm pretty hard usually. Like I'm pretty tough, you know. I'm usually as a as someone that has been consuming the game a lot and has made a work out of learning the game. I can firmly say that this is the most exciting change I've seen. It's better than items, it's better than mythic, it's better than new champions because the game not only feels fresh, but with these changes they've tackled a lot of systemic flaws in the map that made the game very stall and kind of bland for people that watch it a lot or play it a lot, because Drake fights or Baron fights were exactly the same and had the same type of flank, same type of vision, same type of just tackling the objective since 6, 7, 8 years. So everybody kind of figured out how to kite on a Baron or how to cover for flanks or how to create a TP flank. Now it's way more exciting, and I think I do not agree with you guys on the equal access. I think that it is very important that naturally one team will have the uphill later in the game, which is the red side, right? Because it's very hard to do a Baron against the red side. Don't have to cross the river to actually attack you now. They can literally just shoot at you while you're doing the Baron. So it's very hard. But on the other hand, you can actually pressure them in the early game by using the pathway towards the bot turret to pressure the red side bot lane and get many Drakes. So you have this thing where blue side can snowball the game through Drake and red side can snowball, they can kind of stall the game and have an easier access to Baron. The only issue is people are not very smart about the usage of Baron in solo queue and even in competitive. Therefore, Baron is kind of an overrated, thing for at least solo queue. Meaning that red side gets Baron, do nothing with it is something that you guys probably had faced so many times in your games, right? You get Baron, you recall, everybody gets an item, and then people use Baron buff to farm their camps.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are we doing, guys? We should push turrets because this buff is about pushing turrets. Whereas if you stack Drakes, like people are so obsessed with Drakes in solo
Yeah.
queue that having an easy access to Drakes forces the opponent to kind of like suicide into trying to defend a Drake that they can't defend, and then you get an ace and you win the game. So I'd say in that sense, yeah, I do understand why there is a frustration towards like why is blue side so strong. But if you look at it from a theoretical perspective and the way the game should be played, and if you look at competitive play, I feel like the game is way more exciting because now you can try to get the top side of the map, get the grabs, push the turrets, push your opponent far back into their jungle, accept to lose 2 or 3 Drakes, get the Baron, finish the game without even thinking about the soul. And the bot side, the blue side, can try to pressure bot side, get Drakes, leave the top side kind of alone, and try just to stall Baron while like snowballing Drakes. So it gives 2 very clear win condition, which has never been the case in the history of League. And for that reason, I think it's one more reason why this change is exciting.
Yeah, I think that
Sorry,
change
guys, I
will
speak a lot.
definitely. No, totally fine. I think that that impact is going to be a lot more prevalent in competitive, at least at the start. But I think in terms of solo queue, just because dragon stacking is just a stat checker, a lot of the times it's just the better advantage.
I actually think that Drakes in solo queue are useless. The only reason they are good, even the soul. I am an advocate of this, and people are like, Zab, you're crazy. I think you can win very easily against any team that has the soul. Like
Yeah.
any type of soul, give it to me. Like there is no broken soul like the old Chemtech that revives you. Like any
Oh,
soul you
God.
can win against. The only reason is just because people take bad fights to try to save the Drake. That's the only reason Drake is so strong, is because if you have the position on Drake, people will lose the game to try to get a Drake. Like I would say 80 to 95%, right? Like 50% error margin of my games and all the game I watch at any level from Iron 4 to high challenger are just solely lost because people can't afford mentally losing a Drake. That's what League of Legends is people refusing to accept that, oh yeah, this big creep is just gonna die. Like people just refuse it and they just like throw bodies at their opponent, and then it's like you get an ace and you finish the game. It's like, yeah. But the soul in itself is not really dangerous. What's dangerous is the Elder Drake. Elder Drake is the most OP thing in the game.
Mhm.
But anything prior to that, you can leave it to your opponent and still win the game very easily. It's just people don't accept it.
I'm getting flashbacks to my ranked matches now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the games like ping, 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 ping. It's like you see people like have you guys like do? I mean, you guys are way better than me in solo queue. Aren't you like in your game and you see like your support pinging a Drake and it's like next Drake in 230? Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do, bro?
It's always
It's like 230.
the jungler is just always there. Like the second it comes up, and it's just randomly starting it for like. There's no advantage. There's nothing. He just happened to
Bot
be in
lane's
the
not
area,
pushed up, mid's not there.
and
Like,
Guys, we should do
they're
the
all the same. It's
objectives.
the same every game, and they're just like, you know what? I happen to see dragon exists. I gotta go and start it, and it's pumping them, and they're like 25% HP. And yeah, and they're just pinging a bunch, and it's like, dude, my Cassidy mid is at tower getting ran down by Talon. Like, what are you doing?
yeah, dude,
Yeah,
I
it
I
makes no
hate it
sense.
when it's like I think the most frustrating one for me is that like when the jungler is like ganking topside nonstop, so our top laner is super strong, and then he like runs bot as if like
Oh yeah.
me having been ganked 5 times in a row is gonna be able to help him secure the dragon. Like what do you want me to do, bro? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the my biggest critics towards League of Legends as a game is the fact that the game doesn't really teaches players what are the real win condition of it, right? It's like the only if you ask any level of player, and I can go pretty high, like till challenger, and it's like, how do you win at League of Legends? And most people will tell you, farm resources, get items, stack drakes, and win the game. Nobody will tell you that it is actually a positional game, like chess, for instance, where you try to control a zone where you get more resources than your opponent. And if you get more space, you should get more resources because every single inch of space on the map has some resources that are dedicated to it. So if you control more space, you control more resource. So by nature of Snowball, you should be able to extend your space of control and narrow the access to the base defending objective, which are the turrets, to your opponent. And once you narrow the positional defense to your opponent, you get the turret. And by repeating this slowly, you eventually oppress your opponent to their base. And because you have such a huge resource lead, you should be able to dive them or break the base open and then win the game from that. It has nothing to do with dragons, has nothing to do with barons, has nothing to do with buffs. The only thing that matters really in this game is like is a territory control. Nobody understands that. Everybody thinks if you don't get the big blue thing that spawns at this moment in the game's over. And that's very disappointing because it means that we've been playing this game wrong for 10 years and neither the player base or Riot has tried to educate players on thinking differently. Everybody's very content with the idea that people are just going to throw bodies at Drake and Baron for the next 15 years and it's just going to be like the base ground of the game until people try to educate themselves on this on the topic. And that made me very sad because the game is much more beautiful and engaging and exciting if you think about it as a zone control game.
To be honest, I've never even thought about the game that way.
No, it's normal. It's normal. I mean, it's just working on it for so long, you know, I've realized like, oh, we're so wrong. Like we just should control zones and we should win from that because you get so much more from controlling a zone. That's why cross map exists, right? If you think about cross map, it's literally like, oh, I control bot side. The jungle cannot really go into his bot side jungle, but I cannot be bot side and top side at the same time. So then the map is split in half. And when you have, if your top laner is strong, then the enemy jungle cannot go into your top side because it might face the top laner. So then you get 3 quadrants. If you get 3 quadrants and your opponent has only 1 quadrant, you snowball way faster. Like the Drake doesn't have anything to do with that. You just get Drake because it can give you some stats, but it's not because you get like 3 Cloud Drakes that suddenly the game is over. What makes the game over is the fact that your opponent's like, they're gonna get the soul and they'll run into your zone and then you kill them. That's what actually creates the win or the loss. On must win and losses in this game are actually generated from that, never because you got the Drake itself.
That was definitely something I learned around the time we first met. We played some together, and I remember doing the dragon. And you were just like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's like the second dragon. I think it was like 25 minutes in or something. You're like, "There's no way we're getting a 4th dragon." You're like, "Why are you doing the dragon? Come on, help push." And I was just like, "Oh, that makes sense to me."
Yeah, or something.
Yeah.
Extend your zone, get into their jungle. Like people, I really wish people would understand that. If I say to any player, it is much better to get 4 camps into their jungle past 25 than getting a Drake, people will like they will go on Reddit, say, "Look at this guy. He's been a coach. He's an absolute stupid person. He doesn't understand the game." The truth is, a camp at 25 is like 120 gold, something like this. So if you get 4 camps from your opponent, you already made half a K gold. If you do this 3 times, right? And I think the camps respawn, I don't remember the respawn, that's probably around like 40 seconds or maybe a minute. I don't know. Like I'm very bad with these numbers on League of Legends. But imagine that you can deny half a wave on the map and you get 4 camps into enemy jungle every minute. It means in 4 minute span, right? You made 2K gold lead. That's way better than a Drake. It's just nobody thinks about it. People are like, yeah, but if I get the Drake, I run faster.
People
Yeah, I
you
do
know,
understand. It's more
I can go
exciting.
into
He's
faster,
big, he's
Zaboutine.
dragon. He spits fire. It's very impressive. But the truth is, it's better to get Grumps.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think gold in general is kind of lost on players. They don't get the concept of it at all. They don't understand if they have a bounty that they shouldn't, go for extended plays and risk it. They don't understand, item leads. It's like a general kind of player problem. They don't understand, like even the base minions, killing minions. They don't get why it's so important. Obviously, the higher you the players do, right? But like that doesn't happen until probably like high platinum. I don't really know anymore, but they just the point of gold and getting as much as you can all the time so that you can get items and then stack the items, and that's like the true way you get your lead. That's completely lost on players, so I'm not surprised that.
I mean, I don't blame anyone. The only one I can blame, right? If there was someone to blame for that, right? If we had to play the blame game on why is it so hard for players to understand what are the actually core objectives of or the core win condition of League of Legends, I would never blame the players, right? Because I think that it is very hard to kind of reverse engineer the win condition of a game that's as deep and as complex as League of Legends. I think on the other hand, Riot could do a significant better job at trying to incentivizing other things than just getting a dragon every 5 minutes. Because the truth is, the only thing that for granted about players of League of Legends is they will get to the nearest point of resources and they will fight the nearest opponents, right? This is the two things that, like, if you have to program a game, it's like, okay, every single human that plays League of Legends is a mob that will do that. And Riot just designed the game around this, which is okay. So how do I make sure that we have people not just farming and trying to fight the direct opponents? Or we're gonna try to give them something that's at a very specific point on the map that has an apparent higher value than anything else they can get on the map. And then because they like to fight their nearest opponents, they're all gonna go there and they're gonna be like all the nearest opponents against the nearest opponents, and they're just gonna scrap and try to get it. And that works. Like, that designed the game. The game is designed through that. But the reality that you can do something different, but you have to re-tackle the way you want your player to play and educate them in doing something different that might be less exciting for them but more powerful. So Riot doesn't really care. Like, if it's enough for players to play, they will not change it. But that makes me sad because we have a game that's like chess that's played like Halo or Call of Duty, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, that's fair. And it is there is such a huge difference between like pro play and team play and solo queue. The gap is insane. It's so massive.
Even in pro play, it's pretty bad, man.
Yeah.
Even in pro play, most players don't understand that. Like, I've been working with pro players. I think very few players have the awareness because you just think about how you become pro, right? You've tried to climb pretty high, Douglas, if I remember well, and like, you just play solo queue as much as you can, and then you get at a certain rank, and then either teams will just ping you to do play tournaments, but it doesn't mean like they sit you down and they do give you a class of 16 hours to educate you about what are the core win condition of League of Legends. They just tell you to play.
Yeah, a lot of what I learned for team play was mostly self-taught just by watching what the actual good teams did, and then thankfully I had I had a friend of mine who's been in and out of amateur, and I just happened to run into somebody else who is very experienced in coaching, so that was all very helpful. But again, like, I got really lucky, and all of the things that I learned, there's no way anyone else is learning that stuff unless they had access to the same people. And I think there's not that many people who know that
There's
much
a big
stuff
gap, yeah.
and can communicate it well. So
Dougie, out of curiosity, do you feel like that sort of knowledge and having those folks around you? Because when I first met you, Dougie, you were, low diamond. I think you were diamond 3, maybe flowing between 3 and 4 and 2. But then last 2 seasons ago, you hit GM. Do you think that sort of knowledge or sort of better understanding helped you climb higher?
I think it helped. What made me climb higher was just I had joined a team. They were all challenger and GM, and I was just filling in for their support. And I just had all the motivation to try my best and climb. And the person who was coaching that team, I just worked with them every day, and it just kind of like sped up the process. But I mean, obviously, all the input, I think it just sped it up. I was definitely climbing on my own, but yeah, not a lot of people have access to those resources, and I worked with a lot of coaches. There's a lot of people out there who think they know what they're talking about, and they just don't, and it sucks. But yeah.
Because you can climb very high in this game, and you can get it's very easy to be misled about what makes I might speak out of my ass. I might think I do understand the game, and I don't. The truth is, because there is no reverse engineering, there is no AI optimization, we haven't been able to put some bots on the game and try to figure out what are the real hidden win conditions. It's the game that changes every 2 weeks, so even though you'd like to do it on a specific patch, it might be something different. we haven't had like what chess did, for instance, right? We had Stockfish. Stockfish was the classic engine. It was just computing very, very, very deep. So like moves and move ahead, trying to find the best move. And then there was AlphaZero. AlphaZero was an AI. So AlphaZero was just playing against itself. You know, it's neural network programming. So it plays itself and against itself until like it learns how to play the game. That's how most AI just like try to optimize, you know, code. So you can teach an AI pretty much to play any game. And from that, what we've seen, and that has been one of the biggest improvements in the chess field, is you do not need to take the pieces from your opponent. You can just positionally invalidate them by cornering them into a space that they just can't express themselves. So you've seen a lot of bishops, for instance, being completely invalidated by pawns. So, and that's something that flank pawns. So to be a little bit more like specific on that. So one thing that didn't happen in chess in the past was like you would push side pawns. AlphaZero came with this. You push side pawns in a way that you can never give the opponent bishop a good box to play. And this has been a huge improvement in the chess field. And we haven't had this in League of Legends. We cannot learn what the game is at the core. So a lot of people think they're expert and they are not. And I might be one of them, right? Like I can only like I'm often trying to second guess myself. But that from this reason, I think it's very hard to meet someone that actually help you significantly improve your game or improve your understanding of the game, because this game is so deep and complex at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. The three people who I learned the most from all had very different parts of the game they focused on. All very valuable. You know, give or take some space, but like it was all super valuable and it was all very different. I had one person who would just focus on my laning, another person who'd focus on the entire map and map movement, and I had another person who would just focus on my mechanics. And those are the different fields that they were all very good at. So that makes sense. I mean, we're humans, we're not machines, so most of us are kind of very good at one specific thing. Um, but Riot did say they were working on AI stuff, right? I thought they said they were working on getting.
They're working on new bots. I know that, but I
Yeah.
don't know if it was like AI, like we just talked about Zaboutine, which that would be crazy if there was that sort of like tool to help people like crack basically a hidden meaning of the game. That would be really interesting. Because you're right, it was a huge impact on chess. AlphaZero fucking opened up so much.
Yeah, it would be super exciting. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, I think that the game of chess belongs to kind of everyone and anyone. I think that the game of League of Legends belongs to Riot Game, which is a private corporation. So I always, at the end of the day, we have to look at games as digital products that are consumed and generate money. And I think that there is no, at best, it will lose value for the game. If you figure out the core win condition of a game and you try to optimize it around it, I think you lose a lot of excitement around it, because I think that League of Legends is kind of like, sports or politics. Everybody has an opinion about it, independently of their their actual expertise or background. Everybody has an opinion on it, because it caters to everyone. You can play in Iron 4 and think you do understand the game. Like Iron 4 player would come and say, Miss Fortune is such a broken champ. How do I get out of the ultimate? And then you're gonna meet a gold player that's gonna be like, Yasuo is unplayable against, man. I think that they should remove this character. And then you play, you go higher, and then you have diamond players like, I can't play against Zed. Zed is just too strong. I hate assassins. And then you go in Challenger, and people are like, oh, I think like Doran Shield is too strong, because they get more and more specific the better they are on like, yeah, this 16 health per region whenever you get a poke is too much, and I can't play the lane because of that. So because of the kind of open-ended nature of the game, everybody is kind of taken back to it because we want to learn more about it, and because it's an infinite amount of knowledge you can learn from it. It keeps the game fresh and exciting. That's why people linger on it so much, and the game hasn't died. And for the value of the digital project, it's much better if somehow tomorrow I come and I'm like, okay, drakes are useless. The only thing you do is just you push with this item. Even if you die, like look at what the effect of a double support item or a proxy scion, like the boss did with the you know the lethality scion. This
Oh
really
my
kills the
god.
game, right? It makes the game very unfun for everyone because you have a win condition that's not the classic one that kind of plays by itself, that nobody can really stop, and the whole game revolves around it. So you really don't want, for instance, imagine tomorrow an AI comes and it's like Tariq Soraka Sion, and they just go 3 top and they just push till the end of the game. And that's the optimal way to play the game. And everybody does that in solo queue. That becomes hell. So I think that for the sake and for the health of the game, Riot should never allow any AI to try to compute it because it will actually break the enjoyment for the game and it would kill the digital product.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
it would
like that
really
take.
depend on how it would really have to be how depend on how specific that like hidden win con is and how accessible it is. Like
Yeah,
the
but
lethality
imagine you
scion
fix it,
thing. Yeah.
there's gonna be another one. That's the thing is
Yeah.
you will always find you have no promise that the actual win condition of the game or the real meta, right, most efficient tactic available. You have no idea that the meta is exciting. The As long as you hide the meta, people will try to find an exciting meta for themselves because at the end of the day it's a game. So nobody the meta the true way of playing the game is to play out of vision by absolutely almost never fighting and just trying to push your opponent away, getting more resources and threatening more and more to get more and more. That's not fun. That's why nobody does it. So if you had that figured out publicly and say this is the optimal way of playing the game, everybody will lose interest in League. The same way people lost interest in Fortnite at the point where the optimal way of playing was I see an opponent and I build Notre Dame every single time.
You're actually so right though.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it become tedious.
So this is we could kind of talk about AI a bit here, but this is also a common trend with AI where people are worried it's going to break current systems. What if you had used an AI in the system to balance stuff like that out, right? So like you have one that is pushing the meta and coming up with these like crazy things, and some of them might turn out to be a lot of fun, and then others terrible. But then you have an AI on the balance team, right, who patches out the stuff kind of instantly. That is just not fun.
Douglas is inventing, the world that we all afraid to live in, where they take gamers from all across the world, and then they just put them, headsets that actually monitor the amount of dopamine they release, and then the AI just generate games after games, trying to optimize their dopamine release in their brain in a way that the game just gets more fun and more addictive. And it's like, oh guys, so we have a thing that figures out the win condition, and we have another one that's optimizing the fun, and the two are just talking to each other to update the game, and it's just become like mindless, super exciting game, and everything else just feels super numb. I feel like we should really be careful with like optimizing games through AI because at the end of the day, like AI don't think they just optimize through conditions with iterative. There's just it's just Darwinism, right? They just generate path and they just keep the ones that are like keep maximizing your parameters at the beginning. And I don't really want to push that because I think there is some form of creative expression in games, and there is a game is always a message from the developer, the designers. It's a discussion between the designers and the player base, right? And I think that using AI to refine this is very good. But if you just want to reverse engineer fun, you're just gonna create game porn, which is a right. It's like it's gonna trigger the signals in your brain, and you feel like the game is addictive, but it is not good for you because it's not because you feel fun that it is a good thing for you. And I feel like League at least is a game that's already very addictive and very frustrating. But at the end of the day, it is still a game that's complex and pretty enough in its design to be interesting. I don't want it to become a mindless thing that just gives me the same level of dopamine as Vampire Survivor or Candy Crush. You see what I mean? Vampire Survivor is what you're speaking about, which is mindless, very effective, very optimal way to get your dopamine. But I don't want a game online to be that way, at least personally. I don't know if you guys play Vampire Survivor. Have you tried?
No.
I've actually heard about it.
You guys
I have
need to
not played
try.
it though.
You're gonna feel okay when you play Vampire Survivor. You're like, okay, I'm stupid. I'm just chasing dopamine. That's here. You play the game and you're like, this game is ugly. It is stupid. I never get fun playing this game. And then you start getting these jewels that give you like upgrades to your power, and you run around trying to get more and more of them, and you're like, I am so stupid, man. I am as stupid. You know when you play with your dog and you're like, oh, my dog's so stupid. I didn't throw the ball. Ha ha ha, he's so stupid. Exactly the same for yourself. So I think go play it and think that if tomorrow we just plug AI and game design on like these online games like League of Legends, they will inevitably become like Vampire Survivor. They already are a little bit like this, and I think we should not open the Pandora's box yet, because I think we have very few knowledge of how AI could shape these games. But that's my personal take. I think we're getting political there.
Yeah, a little
Oh
bit.
no, a little bit. I still think it's fine though. It's pretty light. It's not like you said anything,
No, of
too
course.
crazy. It's mostly theoretical.
Mhm.
Like that sort of future. I don't know. That is interesting to think like how AI could really just fucking change the way game development works. I think so much.
There's a lot of good space for it. Like, it can help design assets very quickly. It can help with level design. It can help develop things quite quickly. It doesn't necessarily need to be
The
optimized
sole
to
creator.
create gameplay or even change gameplay. It can just be used as a tool too. But you're not wrong. I like that point of view of it just optimizing for dopamine release, because obviously that's a big thing it's used
I mean, that's
for.
the core.
Yeah.
That's the core. If you release dopamine, the game's fun. So, and it's a product at the end. As I say, it's like, you want to do it for chess, I don't care. Everybody can play chess. This is a private product. That's a digital product you pay for eventually. I mean, you don't have to pay. It's free to play, but you will spend the money if you play long enough. Everybody knows this.
That's why you avoid the gotcha games.
Ooh, don't get me started on gacha games.
um.
Uh,
So I keep hearing this complaint that red side bot, in terms of bot, is more easily ganked. But I haven't been. I don't understand why that's being said. Is that like a thing? Is it easier to gank bot side?
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, think about the Tribush bot. Before you had Tribush, but you had a whole wall to protect the bot lane, so you had to flash. Now the Tribush is at the turret. So you can literally be on. Imagine you're just playing a Valkos and you're in the Tribush, and the opponent is under the turret, or Xerath, or anything. It's like, this is a threat, and how do you contest? It is very hard if there is the jungle. You cannot know if you control this bush, bot lane almost immediately has to back off.
Yeah.
And not only there is that, but there is a bush just next to the gromp where the jungle can wait for you if you try to back from your first turret to your second turret. So you can be cut at two spaces. So if these two bushes are controlled, if you put a pink in each, it's very hard to do. But imagine you're so far ahead that you can put a pink ward into the tri-bush and the bush next to the gromp. Theoretically, your bot lane needs to be at their tier 2 while you're getting the first turret entirely, and they can't play the game. Because your jungle, like, you need to call your jungle, and if your jungle doesn't, cannot re-enter his jungle or refuses, which most of the case he will refuse because it's solo queue, what are you doing? There is no option for red side bot lane to play the game if the enemy jungle is sitting next to the gromp and you're already winning as in the 2v2. And that's a little too much.
Even when you're not winning the 2v, or even when you are the red side and you are the ones with the stronger 2v2, the fact that it's so easy for jungle mid to just fuck your shit up is so terrible. It's way
Yeah,
more
it is.
accessible than the tri-bush, in my opinion.
And it's very easy to proxy top lane with the upgrade. The red side is at the deficit because it is the top laners, the top lane champion pool is made in a way that you can do the same thing that you're doing to the enemy bot lane top side for the blue side, right? The mid jungle red side can push mid, go to the top side and try to gank the top laner. The truth is, first, you're not getting as much from preventing from killing top lane than preventing bot from playing the game, because not only you have more access to weaker champions with lower level, lower health pool, easily diveable, and you can prevent the enemy support from roaming, impacting mid lane, and putting wards all at once by just pressuring one side of the map. If you kill the top laner, okay, you have a strong top laner, but that doesn't prevent the rest of the game to go to ashes. So because of that, it's very imbalanced. And not only that, but if the blue side has a winning top laner, the path to proxy in top lane blue side is so easy because you're covered by you can access with protection to the space between the two turrets, right? I don't know if you see what I'm talking about, right? Like your blue side and you're proxying the red side as a blue side top laner. So your mid jungle can pressure the bot side while you're proxying top side very easily. And on the other end, it doesn't work because you cannot proxy the bot lane and you cannot gank, and ganking top doesn't do the same as ganking bot. So it gives a very huge imbalance that I think Riot needs to tackle. I would personally remove the Bosch next to the Gromp. I think this is too much.
Oh yeah, that one is the that's the worst for sure.
Replace it with
Yeah,
a
this one is too
wall,
much.
or
Put the wall
Yeah,
back.
just put a solid wall in a way that at least if a jungle, imagine you're playing as a red side bot lane and you're facing a Jarvan that's invading your Gromp, right?
yeah.
No, he can do the Gromp, stay in the bush, and if you're trying to back from your bot lane, he can kill you in between your turrets. If he has to commit his EQ or his flash, if it's the flash to keep his EQ, it means that they can do that only once every 5 minutes. And if he EQs first, you need to be very low HP and have no summon or spell to die from a Jarvan that already used EQ in early game, right? You need to be like 60 HP. So he can't kill you. But like right now, he can do Gromp, stay in a bush, if you back off from your turret, he EQs you without any cost and come back and keep like doing what he does. Doesn't use any summoner, so he can literally EQ you under your turret, flash away to the tribush, and just keep his and mind his business. And I think that's just too easy. There's so many junglers in the game that can access to the enemy bot lane through Gromp invade, and Gromp is one of the most valuable camp in the game in terms of XP and gold. So proxying, like pressuring bot side and getting enemy Gromp as a blue side team is probably one of the most optimal strategy in the game at a zero cost. And I think that's unfair.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I guess in my brain I just pictured it as like a warding problem from bot side, or
There's
even
there's no way you can ward bot side to protect against the 5 angles you can get ganked from. There's no way. I've
Yeah,
tried
you
it.
just need
It's
to
like
back to your tier 2.
yeah. I mean the best way you can do it is to like get like ward ahead, like ward in the river and like see when the enemy jungler enters your jungle, but like you don't know where they are then. You know, like you know they're in there, but you don't know if they're gonna come dive you or what. And then what am I just supposed to sack every freaking bot wave every time that I see the jungler come bot? Like, I don't know.
It's
Maybe.
very hard.
It is hard.
Very
Either
hard.
I lose because I can't get access to resources, or I risk it and then just die in a 3v2 because a lot of the junglers that are easy to gank with like that are just super strong and have good items right now.
oh, well, hopefully
Maybe it's just a skill issue. Maybe I should just get better.
No, I mean, if you look, for instance, I would recommend you to. So I was rewatching the LEC before we record that. So LEC day, it's day 6, so second week. And the first game of the evening was BDS versus SK. That are two teams that want to play around the bot lane. It was very interesting because the first strategy we've seen is literally just the guy does red and goes immediately to enemy Gromp. Like literally every single jungler that can access blue side that can have a pushing bot lane on the first 3 wave. What happened is the bot lane pushes crash the first 3 wave, and then the support moves and escort the jungle to the enemy Gromp. And from there, it's already almost a little checkmate because you're a dual lane and you know you're on 2v3. And if your jungle, right, the red side jungle, try to defend the Gromp, he has to face jungle and support at his Gromp on the first clear while you're trying to catch the wave. And they have so many options on you. So I would just try to salvage that by making the bush next to the Gromp a wall. So the jungle still has to flash over the wall or go to the tri-bush to pressure the turret, which gives a little bit of air to breathe for the bot lane.
Yeah. Or even like I think adding the wall there also like at least requires the jungler to devote a ward to it as well. Because when it's just a bush, you can just see
Yes.
without cost.
I agree.
You just step into the bush.
damn.
So
What about the void grubs? What do you think about those?
Um, they're fine. I
Actually,
feel like it's because it's a neutral, everybody talks about it, but it's fine. I actually feel like they kind of useless because the grubs passive is a win more. Like if you get all the grubs and your team is losing, like you're never gonna see a turret. So I feel like it's always a very hard thing because when you give passive buff to turrets, it means that you're only gonna use it if you can hit turrets. So you need to make sure your team is in a winning situation, and especially in solo queue, it's such a mess that nobody's gonna hit turret at the precise points or anything. So I would say you can leave 6 grubs every single game and still like get to challenger. I don't think you can leave 4 drakes to in every game because your team is not gonna react the same way to drake that they do to grubs.
yeah, I'm okay with the grub change. Like you said, though, Zaboutine, it is very much a win more thing, which like, I mean, it has value still. I think just to like reward teams for being aggressive early, to push turrets, get resources, get the map, and kind of squared away. I think it's also interesting how the Void Grubs interact with the Rift Herald, where like, uh, so when you have Rift Herald and you drive it into a turret, you get like what is it, 5 Void Grubs, I think. Um, and then for every Void Grub your team has gotten, you get an additional 2. So you could have a max of like almost like 15, 18, whatever those Void Grubs just crashing into the turret, and then and the enemy has to clear them out. If they don't have good wave clear, you can really abuse that, get a turret, maybe 2, maybe 3. And then kind of tangentially related, I really like the Rift Herald being pilotable. I think like where it makes you exit the Rift Herald is safe enough that it's not a total int button unless you absolutely miss the turret. But then at that point, you just need to make sure the driver is actually a capable individual and not trolling. I've seen people actually be able to use Rift Herald to hit 2 turrets in 2 different lanes. So like you crash into the mid tier outer one, and you drive a bot, crash into the bot tier outer one, which is pretty cool. So I like those changes personally, but I don't know. What do you think, Dougie?
The grubs give you true damage, I think, on towers, right?
Yes, they do give true damage against towers. It's not a ton, but it starts to feel more noticeable like in the later plates because they add more armor and MR going forward. So
I think the driving thing is interesting. I don't know. At first, it looks troll, but I think it's a good change. But I'm also very curious as to kind of the crazy nonsense people are gonna come up with, because I'm sure some quirky behavior is gonna spawn from it. There's just no way that thing is hilarious. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know, no problem. I mean, yes, I feel like the direction they're taking is good. I think
Yeah.
the execution, it feels like it's okay. You can move and it's kind of fun. I feel like the direction, what I want to praise Riot for is like make more of that shit. Make more of that. I click on that thing. I was saying, for instance, in Drake's, instead of getting passive buffs, give me like a summoner change like we have in Arena, where the jungle, if he smites an objective, he get, for instance, a blitzcrank hook, a one-time usage blitzcrank hook. I like these type of things. It's like, oh, we're gonna give a reward to players where they can do something different from getting a buff, and I like the direction of the hero. In terms of execution, it's you just run somewhere, you hit a turret, and that's about it. Like it doesn't feel like you can engage. I would love to see like an engage, like a herald engage.
Yeah.
Something where like
Yeah.
a team just get a flanking herald. That would be insane.
yeah, do you remember like old jungle where like if you smote a different camp, you would get different things happening? Like
Yes.
if you smote wolves, you'd get like the wolf that like was vision and stuff. I actually like that a lot. I wish they'd bring that sort of thing back too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anything that's interactive, I think, is much better than just a passive. And golds and items, most of it is passive. It's invisible. I want to have more interactive rewards for people actually engaging with neutral objectives. And the Baron is pretty good because you get the buffs to your minions, so you can push safely and stuff like this. So that makes sense. Like I think Baron buff is very well designed. I think Drake is absolutely ass. I absolutely hate the whole system around Drake. I think one of the worst thing in League of Legends as a whole. But I really enjoy the Herald. I just feel like it's a little bit underwhelming. The fact that the Herald has no real usage for fighting. I'd love to get Herald to be able to like knock people up or do something and have these, oh, they have Herald, guys, careful, they can have like this giant unstoppable Nunu ball that can like stun my ADC, and then the guy just can just jump away when he hits a champion. Most of the things you do have is just like run into a turret and that's it. There's like, yeah, it's the same as previous, just you're in it. And I feel like it's good, the direction is good, and encourage this. Thank you, Riot, just do more.
Yeah, I think that's pretty valid. Definitely more active stuff and less passive stuff makes for more entertaining gameplay, and it's just healthier. I think that's a very good point. I was watching somebody and they were saying the same thing, how they just need to keep pushing these changes because it makes the game more about mechanics and outplay than, you know, get this or move here and get that, and just choke out your opponent through zone control.
Yeah, I definitely like the active aspect as opposed to just stat checking someone. That always feels kind of bad.
Has the focus for teams changed a lot because of the map changes? Like, has the gameplay focus changed a shit ton, or is it just kind of the small things like securing, you know, red side Gromp and then positioning that into the dive bot lane?
I feel like there's a lot more jungle focus bot than there has been in many seasons, personally. Like, it just seems like it's gang central station bot lane every game. Unless you have a jungler who's like playing Evelynn or Fiddlesticks, and then they can, you know, gank top more effectively.
I think you need to ask me, invite me in a year, and I will tell you. I feel like it's the systems have been put in place for 3 weeks now.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
So, and I think that we haven't seen most of it, mostly because right now items are so unbalanced that it heavily skews the win conditions of the map. Meaning that if you have, for instance, I've seen a lot, you have very OP mage items and very OP lethality items.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, most of the games that I've seen, at least in solo queue at different level, is people taking enchanter supports to try to get like, you know, poke mages in support, a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the response to it is just power farming blue cane everywhere, you know, very lethality heavy junglers. And so most of the game is revolving around just getting your stupid item and one-shotting your opponents faster than they can one-shot you, and less about, oh, it is crappy around this objective or that objectives. Like, they don't really matter as much as items right now, because items are more getting your item as a support jungle or mid right now is more important than getting 2 or 3 drakes. Like, there's Storm Surge is the equivalent of a soul immediately when you get it. So the game is very slow, and then it's League of One Shot everywhere. Very, very scrappy. I don't know how you feel about it, Blackheart, but my games are getting extremely scrappy, and there is no like real like focus on getting a lead from one side of the map. It's literally just everybody farming until they can get their first item faster than your opponent, and then you just press your button and people explode.
Yeah, I think the snowballing is super hardcore around mid jungle for sure. Whether the jungler's playing lethality, like you said, like, you know, Kane or Rengar or Evelynn or whatever, and then, you know, your mage is getting your Storm Surge, and then, you know,
And it's
going
over.
to another lane, roaming, and then it's over.
Game is over.
Yeah.
Malzahar right now one-shot people with ore. You get Malzahar with Malignant Storm Surge. Like, I play it. You can 0 to like 100 to 0 any squish in the game by just like EWR.
Yeah.
Yep. I think most of my games, it feels like a heavier percentage than last season. And again, it's early season kind of growing pains. But like, I feel like the better mid laner wins like more often than not in this patch. Jungle is like the second most.
Yeah, if you like, I've tried to figure out how to win on this patch. in solo queue for intermediate level.
Which
And it's
role?
pretty much, I would say, just wherever you just follow your jungle. Literally, like leash his camps. If you have nothing to do, push mid, leash his camps. Make him just the king, and whenever he wants to force something, you're just next to him. You will win every single game. Like, I swear to God, if your jungle is not too bad, right, you lose the one where the jungle is really, really bad. But just move with your jungle. And I feel like it's very unfair at the moment because, yeah, lethality jungles and AP mid are so strong that if you're on a side lane, no matter who you are, if you're not playing a full tank Sion or something like this, you will die one shot to any mid jungle movement on the map.
Yep. And I 100% agree.
Beside the mage thing, that sounds. I mean, maybe there was a little gap there in the 2 years that I kind of stepped away a little bit, but that sounds just like League. That's what I
Dude,
always did as a support. Just follow the jungle
launch the
around.
game once, farm your Malignance with Malzahar, and walk around the map and just press R on people.
Yeah, Mouse
And then
Yep.
whenever you get the Malignance and you get some kills, you get the Storm Surge.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna do the threshold of 35% HP, so you're gonna get the proc. So even if the guy is low HP, doesn't matter. The guy explodes. It's over.
Yep. The other one I've seen that's been like super awful is Xerath.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all mages.
Halfway across the lane, dude.
Any Malignance, dude, is stupid. There is so many, and it's not only the worst, because then you have the bruisers that can use the the Reef Maker. That's not a mythical item anymore. I mean, that's as you said, growing pains of new patch. It's very fun at the beginning because you're, oh, I'm an ADC, I'm gonna try this and that, and then it's like, oh, Storm Surge, Storm Surge, Storm Surge, Storm Surge, and whenever Storm Surge is gonna be nerfed, which is gonna be in the next patch, you're gonna get the second most broken item that I didn't think about, and then the third one and the fourth one. Remember when they made the mythical patch? How long we stayed with the Gore Drinker that was like insanely broken?
Oh
yeah.
What was the other one? The blue one. It gave you a dash. Do you remember the dashing Dariuses?
Oh, it was Stridebreaker.
Stridebreaker,
Yeah.
dashing Dariuses, Stridebreaker Nocturne. What was the counterplay?
It was
a bruiser tanky item. It was a tanky item. The dude would build that and be tanky as fuck, and he would just run at you as a Darius, and he would just jump on you, and you're playing Ashe, and it's like, oh, but you have a slow on your Q. It's like, hey, sure, thank you, man.
You don't. You're speaking to my soul right now, Zaboutine. Holy shit.
Do you guys remember when they made the release of the last batch of items? So 3 years ago, 2.5 or 3 years ago, and there was the Lilia and the Udyr with the chem tank thing. You just press the chem tank and then you run so fast. It was like, oh, you were under your turret and Udyr killed you as an ADC. It's like, you overextended. It's like, I'm under my turret, bro. I was like, yeah, you need to be at tier 2. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Sorry.
Just play safe, bro.
It's like, just farm. So,
yep.
That's why I really enjoy the item revamp, because they're so exciting. But on the other hand, I know that once the excitement of the first month is gone, the game is a living hell for 2 years. And once the game is finally balanced, the game players find it stall, and they want new items again. So the game is really never balanced, which proves the point that people don't want a balanced game. They want to impose their win condition upon their opponents. That's what they want to do. That's what fun is for most players.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun and also just trying new stuff, and when it works, it's like, you found the treasure. I think people really like that too. If they get stagnant, then there's no treasure to find if you do the same thing over and over again. This is why people hated the double tank, one mage, 180, and fights were lasting like 5 minutes, and the games were going from 40 minutes to an hour long. And that was the meta for like
you look at the durability patch of last year. Oh, guys, yeah, I think everybody was on Reddit and stuff. I've seen all these people. Yeah, I think the problem with League of Legends is there is too much damage. And I was like, okay, guys, we're gonna narrow the damage. And then it was like, oh, but since damage is not high, sustain is so strong. Okay, guys, we're gonna nerf the sustain. How long did it last? 4 months. And then people were like, the game is so bullshit, man. It's so boring. Nothing happens. I don't even know what I'm doing that. Everybody's so weak. And so Riot does what people want, right? It's like, okay, so you don't want durability anymore. Here you go, new batch of items, everybody one-shot. And now it's like, oh, but everybody one-shot, it's fun. It's like, yeah, you can always complain about something, but the truth is, I feel like people are having more fun one-shotting other people than actually doing their whole combo and doing 30%.
For sure. I assume none of us like the fact that there's no preseason, right? And then it's a little troll.
Yeah, that's bull.
I thought that was
BS.
pretty troll. That was
Yeah,
pretty
BS.
fucking troll.
Yeah.
That was.
I
I feel like a lot of these problems would have been ironed out if there was a preseason. Maybe not all of them, but like we would have been on iteration 2 or 3 of the bullshit as opposed to
Yeah.
like live patch.
Right now we're in League of Black Cleaver again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh God.
yeah, yep.
Do you remember
Or-
this?
Oh, I remember. I remember very well.
The League of Black Cleaver, man.
Oh,
Black Cleaver on
God,
every
dude.
single champion.
It was forever too.
That's
That was a
crazy.
really long meta, and
It
it's still
lasted a solid 2 months. Solid 2 months. I think from the release in November to pretty much January when the season started, everybody was building Black Cleaver on every single champion that could build Black Cleaver in the game.
Yeah.
Junglers, top laners, ADCs, even mid laners. Everybody was just like, yeah, why would I build something else? Just Cleaver. Like you
Yeah.
can't tank it. It's too strong.
That was ridiculous.
That's really stupid.
Overall, do we like Freak? I feel like he's doing a good job, all things considered.
I feel like I hate the fact that we are taking the most famous individual within a team because at the end of the day, I mean, everybody has, I think most people that will listen to the podcast work in companies where they're not alone doing something. And so it's the cumulative input of a lot of people. We forget about a lot of the play testers as well that have an input, on how fun the game can be when they test it. And I feel like it is very early to judge what's even if he's in director position. David has done. I feel like a lot of what he says publicly is usually he looks much less clever publicly than he is from talking to him, and I want to judge the impacts of him and his teams and the people that work with him in a span of 2 or 3 years, the way I've done with every single like balance and design team, and not judge very early on like 6 months of work because it's very impossible. And I really want to I just want to give credit to the whole team,
Yeah.
and not just the man, because I don't think like Riot is such a big corporation. I don't think you can just jump in, especially moving from a caster role and be like, okay guys, we're gonna just revamp the whole thing, and people are like, yeah, sure, David, just show us the way. So I think it's just the discussion around Freak is just getting out of control, if I may say.
Sure. I don't pay
You are
attention
free to
too
say
much.
that,
I don't pay a lot of attention to the community stuff, but I do know the league community. I mean, it's just communities in general tend to be like this, but they're just the headhunting is insane, and I'm sure he just gets so much toxicity just sent his way just for existing.
Remember Markieta?
In that position? Who?
Thanks, Markieta.
No.
Oh, this is bullshit. Markieta. Everybody is speaking about Markieta all the time. Mark did a great job at communicating. I think Freak is smart. I think he is not always very comfortable engaging with direct critics publicly. Because it is. But if there is one person that has a devoted love for the game since the very ages of it's David, right? It's like he's been there forever and ever, from the spotlights to the casting to the broadcast to the esports, and I respect the fact that he's at least trying, and we'll see. Well, maybe in a year or two I will say, yeah, I think it has been detrimental to the game and he was not the right person for it. But I think you need to give time, because shifting a game such as League of Legends takes way more than a few months.
For sure. That makes sense. I don't disagree. He has been around for a while. I think anyone who picks up that mantle, especially after the stuff from before, is very brave. So I respect that a lot. I will say the surrender changes. I don't know. I don't like the pacing of the games these days. I feel like they intentionally push them to move a little faster. And I might be alone here, but man, I'm not a person who likes to surrender ever at any given moment, no matter what's happening. And I hate that.
Oh, I hate you. I just hate that so much, dude. Like,
A
just
lot of
please
people
FF.
hate me for that. A lot of people hate
I
me for that.
I
As
want
they should.
FF. I want FF at 10 for 3 people. That's how much I want FF to be available. I want FF at 10.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
care. I am wasting so much of my life watching people locking each other into games that are like, eventually, even if there is a comeback, I want to be out. This is not the experience I was looking at when I clicked on play. And no matter, like, people tell me, yeah, but it is a rank. It doesn't matter, man. Are you gonna make a living out of your rank? Is it a social status that you? No, it doesn't matter. So I feel like we should have much earlier FF for less people. As long as there is majority, it's democracy. Let's get out of this game and tag a new one.
Well, I went into that fully knowing I was going to be the only one, but that's fine.
Some people are like you. No problem with that.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered pretty much most of the stuff, but thank you for chatting with us. And thank you,
Was
Ryan,
great.
for your unique input from the AD carry position. You know how much you love it.
Oh yeah, the season's been so great. I love it. So happy.
You're
Yeah,
the
but
big
yeah,
loser.
Zaboutine. Yeah, Zaboutine was great to talk to you again. Insightful as always.
Yeah, I love talking to you guys, and thanks for the invitation. It was a blast.
Of course, of course.